This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
And we are back for another edition of the Primetime Podcast right here on Most Valuable Podcasts. This is your one-stop shop for college football, college basketball. We give you the best talk. We give you the best analysis. And it's kind of it's a bittersweet day, I'm going to say that. Because today is the official day where both you and I love college basketball, but both you and I love college football at the same time. It's kind of like having two kids, and we're trying to spread the love equally. But let's be honest, there's nothing greater than a college football season. And today is the official day on the podcast where we say goodbye to one child, send them off to school for a couple months or so, and we welcome in a new child coming back from school where the school years are off in this little reality. And we end college football today. We transfer into college basketball / draft topics for the rest of the time. And we got a dandy for you guys. We're going to be talking national championship. We're going to be looking at Michael Porter Jr. Could he be making a return for the Missouri Tigers? And then we're going to look at the NFL draft, kind of taking a look at Mason Rudolph and Lamar Action Jackson to see which one we would take if we were in an NFL draft room. But before we get started, got some housekeeping. Number one, if you want to support us, make sure we can keep the lights on. Don't need the heat on today. It's a little bit warmer here in Chicago than it was last week, but go to patreon.com/Most Valuable Podcast for $10 a month. You can be on the podcast with us talking about whatever topic you would like to talk about. Then we're also selling MVP t-shirts. All that information is down below in the description. You can go ahead, get yourself some MVP gear, the first of its kind here at Most Valuable Podcast. And then last but not least, number one, if you're on iTunes, you have an iTunes, please give the Primetime Podcast a 5-star rating. It would mean the world to us. And then if you could do the same thing for the Onside Kick, the Fast Break, and the Rick and Johnny Podcast. And if you haven't seen it already, go over to mostvaluablepodcast.com. Because of our wonderful patrons, we were able to get a new website, and it looks absolutely fantastic. And Brandon, I got one more thing. Because Bowl Mania is over, we have a winner to announce. Am I correct? We have a winner to announce. It is not you. You did not win. You finished with 21 points. However, I'm putting an asterisk next to your entry because we didn't enter it until after that week 1 of games. So that 0-5, you could have technically had 3 more points and finished in either second or third place. So I'm putting an asterisk next to yours.
I think I'm still going to claim a national championship.
You're going to claim a national championship? Yeah. Well, I finished third. You had 21, could have been a 24. I had 23, could have been a 24 if Georgia would have won last night. But the winner of our Bowl Mania pool is character 12345. So here it is. I've got the prize right here. It's what I brought in today. And I'm going to reveal it for everyone. It is a classic Golden Girls t-shirt, and it says Stay Golden on it. Stay golden because you won the gold medal here for the Bowl Mania. I'm going to throw that over to Brandon so that he can see for himself. Sorry for hitting the microphone there, B.
Is this one of your old shirts?
No, that's a brand new shirt. It's a Golden Girls shirt, has all the Golden Girls on it, and it says Stay Golden on the front because you won the gold medal. Character. So here's what you got to do, character. You got to email us at mostvaluablepodcast@gmail.com and just send us a screenshot or a picture of the little ESPN drop down, just proving that you're logged in and that's you. And then we'll set everything up to send you your Golden Girls t-shirt for winning our Bowl Mania pool. But Brandon, let's get into it. We had one dandy of a game last night, and I'm going to ask you this question to start off everything. This is, to me, the question I was wondering today as I was at my cubicle at work. The game we saw last night, not just college football playoff, but all time, was this the best national championship that we've ever seen in college football?
I don't know that we're able to say that.
Well, okay, in our lifetime.
Because I was going to say, what are we comparing it to? Are we comparing it to the best ever? I would probably have to say it wasn't, but I would say in our lifetime since we've been watching, I think it's been It's definitely been one of the better ones.
Mm-hmm.
I would say last year's was a great one as well. I would say that the game. What was it? Just the first
Rose
one.
Bowl.
No.
Oh, you're saying
No,
the
the first one within the college. This new playoff.
The
format.
one with O.J. Howard, where he had that big play running down the sideline. You're talking about that one? The first meeting between Alabama and Clemson?
No, it has nothing to do with Alabama. It's the game. It was Oregon and Ohio State.
Okay.
That was a great one too. So I can't say that this was the best one, and I don't want to, because then my people who already hate me because I'm an Alabama fan will say, "Hey, don't say that because he's an Alabama fan and they won." And you talk just like that. I know you do. But I would say that this was one of my favorites, only because we really did see a good game.
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly a tale of two halves. It really showed, and what I liked about it is that it really showed a game. It was another game of adjustments. Could you make that adjustment at halftime to come out and do something different? And I think that the reason why it was one of the most exciting ones is because you bench a 25-2 starter in Jalen Hurts in favor of Tua Tagovailoa, and he comes out and plays phenomenally in the second half and ultimately leads to Alabama getting a win. So it was one of the best I've seen, but I can never say a hands down that one's the best. I can't say that. Well, I want to know your thoughts, because you asked me a shit question like that, because I cannot come out and say that something is the best in terms of a game like that. But
I can.
You can.
And the reason why I can is, in my mind, going back to, so I'm going to use the reference point for me of like national championships that I started following. I'll say around, I guess I'll do the 2003 season, because that was when I was 13 years old. Or 2013, it was BCS at the time, national championships. That's LSU, Oklahoma, 1-2. From then on, that was like my kind of first of, I'm watching this game religiously each and every year. Before that, it's like, I like sports, but I'm not like watching every game. I'm watching a few games. I'm really playing the games on my PlayStation or my video games. That's really what I'm doing instead of watching them. And since 2003, my reference point, this is one of the three best national championships that I've seen. There are two others that I'm putting into this category, and neither of them are from the college football playoff. The first one, this is in no particular order. The first one was the last BCS championship that we ever saw. Jameis Winston going up against the Auburn Tigers. That was the year where Auburn got into the BCS with the kick six that beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl. The other one is the 2005 season, the 2006 Rose Bowl with Vince Young, USC, walking it off, winning, even though I believe I wanted USC to win at that time. I don't remember. I just remember it was a great game. Those are the three. The 14 BCS championship, the 2006 Rose Bowl, and the game we saw last night. The top three national championships that I've seen. Now, is it the best? No. I would say the Texas one is the best. However, that's nostalgia kind of kicking in. That one's kind of, it's like a fine wine. It's been sitting there. It's been fermenting. It's been aging over time. And whenever you have something great, the more time you get, you think better and better and better of it, even if it wasn't that great at the time. And I'm not saying that championship wasn't great. It's just probably gotten better. We've hyped it up over the years because of how great it was at the moment. The thing I loved most about last night, and this is me sitting on it, sleeping on it, because last night, because you were there, I was an emotional fan. That's what I was. I was all in on Georgia. I was kind of watching as a Georgia fan, even though I'm not a Georgia fan. I just wanted Georgia to win so badly because, A, I picked them to win. B, I wanted someone other than Alabama to win again. However, after sleeping on it and after letting all those kind of fandom feelings go away, the best thing about this game was exactly what you said, was the who could make the adjustment but the way I would say it is the thing that made this the best game like of the season is it was the most non-Nick Saban game I think we've ever seen. Like, Nick Saban, to me, is a guy where it's like, he might sit there and think, you know what, I should pull Jalen Hurts. I should bring in Tagovailoa. However, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to keep Tua on the sideline, and I'm going to keep Jalen Hurts in there. But Nick Saban pulling the trigger, putting in Tua, having him play that second half, and that basically turned the table, because from there on out, I heard it today, I think it was Joe Klett said it, and he hit it right on the head. Early in the game, Georgia was ruling the game because they came out, they let Jake Fromm throw the ball. Like, you know what, Jake, we're putting it in your hands. We're going to have him throw the ball early. Then after we get up, we're going to change the game plan and go to our run. Hit him with a surprise with the pass, then go to what our strength is in the run. And with Jalen Hurts in that offense, it was a lot of 3 and outs. Like I said at halftime, I sent a tweet out. The 2 big stats that I thought of from the first half for Alabama, third down conversion, time of possession. They were not staying on the field long enough on offense. That defense was coming out, and they didn't have much time. You put Tua in, we're getting some offensive consistency going. That defense is staying on the sideline for about 5-6 minutes. It's catching its breath a little bit. Then at that time, Alabama could say, you know what? We're going to unleash the dogs on Jake Fromm because now we have a fresh unit coming out there over and over, and that's what changed the game. We're going to convert a little bit on third down. We're going to keep the ball for more time of possession. The Alabama defense got less tired, I would say more rested, I should say, in between drives, and then they were able to be more effective against Fromm and the Bulldogs.
Well, you look at what worked so well in the Rose Bowl this past year for Georgia. It was the fact that they leaned heavily on their running game, and they ran the ball very, very effectively. Both Nick Chubb and both Sony Michel ran the ball very well. So if you look to last night, that didn't happen. Sony Michel, I think, ran the ball pretty well, but Nick Chubb was bottled up throughout the evening. I think he had 18 carries for 25 yards.
You are right on the button there. Sony Michel also had 14 carries for 98.
So he did well. I mean, he was able to get some running room, but it certainly wasn't
Neither
anything.
got into the end zone either.
It certainly wasn't anything like the week before, where Sony had 4 touchdowns overall, and I think on 11 touches. So it was really incredible in that game. But then you also look that you're going up against Oklahoma's defense, which throughout the year and for most of the time hasn't been looked at as a strong defense. They showed that they were a stronger defense this year. I think that's a reason why they were able to help get themselves to the playoff. Their offense helps, of course, but they showed some promise on the defensive side, but not in the game against Georgia. But then you look at Alabama, and they did such a great job on the defensive side of the ball against the run. I can't tell you how many times I was yelling last night at the TV at certain Alabama,
letting your fandom come out.
At certain Alabama defenders in the backfield, they kept falling down on all their routes. It's like, what are you doing?
Yep.
Get off the turf and play some defense. It's not helping at all by you falling down on all of these cuts that a receiver's making and letting them go for 80 yards and a touchdown.
Yep.
So those were things that Georgia was able to do to Alabama early. And Jalen Hurts, as much as I think that he's a good quarterback, I like him a lot. I think he makes some great plays. What he did last night was he was so much more willing to run first. And he did have some success running the football. I believe 6 carries, 47 yards for him. He was the leader for a while in that category for Alabama until they got things going. But he was failing to be able to really make reads down the field and then feel comfortable and confident to be able to make those throws. He was really, really struggling. He looked very much out of his comfort zone doing that. And part of it, I think, that is attributed to Georgia's good defense and their defensive pressure and the rush that they had against him. But I think another part is that we're still seeing that Jalen Hurts isn't fully comfortable as a
pocket passer.
I was just gonna say, I was just gonna say, as a pocket passer, He's a guy who still really relies on his wheels to be able to make plays outside of the pocket to do that, which is a good thing, but to a point. And I think we saw that last night. And for Nick Saban, it got to a point where he believed that he had what now looks to be a secret weapon, what he was pulling out a secret weapon, which is no longer a secret. And Tua Tagovailoa, he did an excellent job last night. He came in, he played very confidently, and what Tua was able to bring was, as I just mentioned, a confidence with his arm, a confidence to make a throw deep down the field, not just a crossing route, not a crossing pattern, not a check down to a running back, deep down the field strikes to wide receivers, things that really help to jumpstart the Alabama offense, things that help to move drives, get third downs. Well, not a whole lot, but that they necessarily converted for, because what they were doing is they were on first down, they were getting another first down. It was coming to second down, they'd get another first down. They didn't convert on a whole lot of third downs throughout the night, but they did end up getting a lot of first downs in the second half.
Yeah.
On first down and second down. That's what Alabama's jumpstart was and kickstart was last night. And that's what ended up helping them win the football game. It's because Nick Saban, you said it, that Nick Saban did not, it was not a Nick Saban-esque game, but what it did was that it showed people why he is the best coach in all of college football, because it doesn't matter. Everyone knows Alabama as this team who's up almost all the time by a lot, because they're either just that much better than their opponent, or they're playing Mercer. And it's the same. I mean, that's the same thing. And people will say, well, they play, a couple of these cupcake teams in their season. They do. And you and I had a conversation about that last night.
I'm going to bring that up. That's going to be at the very end.
That we're in agreement about that, but I'll wait for that then. But they know Alabama to win these games big, and for Alabama to have no points at halftime against Georgia, everyone's thinking Georgia's got not everyone, but a lot of people are thinking Georgia's got this.
Yep.
Nick Saban is not in a spot that he is going to do well in, because that's so many times people talk about, they're never in this spot. They're always on the other side. Can they even make a comeback? And Nick Saban said, screw that. It doesn't matter that we have no points. It doesn't matter that we only had 4 first downs. We're going to make a change, go to someone who I think is going to bring us some better outcomes, and we're going to make it happen. And that's exactly what happened. He was lucky enough to be able to have that happen for their team last night.
Here's one question. I've got 2 questions in my head. The last one's going to be what you mentioned about kind of my biggest worry for the kind of aftermath of this game. However, the one thing that I'm sitting there in my head, and you and I both talked about this again last night, but I want to bring it up for everyone watching and listening, is I saw an ESPN article today, and it kind of voiced an opinion that I had last night, where the headline to the article read, Jalen Hurts, biggest fan of Tua Tagovailoa, but for how long? And the first thing I said to you after the game, and you could say this is me overreacting, I don't think it is, though, because if I'm Jalen Hurts, I've been starting for 2 years now. This was my 2nd year starting. I feel challenged now. I said to you, I would not be surprised. I'm kind of leaning more towards the I bet on Jalen Hurts transferring, because there's no way Tua loses the job next year. Tua is the starter for Alabama beginning 2018. And I know you're going to get the whole, well, they got to play during spring ball and they got to fight it out. You don't come in second half, win the national title, and then, we're going to forget about it because you got to battle this guy. Like, you already have a leg up in that. If there is a competition, you have a leg up for winning that national championship. That's what I'm looking at. And I feel like if I'm trying to predict the crystal ball right now, Tua is going to be starting for Alabama. Jalen Hurts will be playing somewhere else.
So I think you're wrong. And the reason why I think you're wrong is because Jalen Hurts isn't 25-2 as a starter by some fluke. He's not 25-2 because, he just got lucky. He's 25-2 and one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC because he is talented. He's a talented quarterback, and he knows what he's doing back there behind center. Are there things that he still needs to get better at? Yeah, I mean, I already mentioned that. And my whole thought to you, I think, last night when you had brought that up is that we're seeing one glimpse of Jalen Hurts not being at his best. We're seeing a glimpse of Tua being at probably one of his best. And if it's reversed, if it's Tua doing that, having the first half that Hurts had, and then Hurts comes in and does what Tua did in the second half, Ricky Widmer, still probably saying the same thing. That, Tua's going to be transferring. He's going to be getting out of there. And I think that the reason why we cannot say that is because of the fact that Hurts has showed us many things throughout his time at Alabama, that he's really, really good, that he's good with his legs, and that he is good with his arm, and that he can be a pocket passer, but he needs to get better at it. I think, though, why would he stay there is because if it's now certainly a competition. I mean, we're going to see that, and Nick Saban has said we're going to see these two battle it out in the offseason. Jalen Hurts would be silly to go somewhere else because I think that he'll develop more as a quarterback now more than ever, knowing that he does have that competition there, knowing that Tua came and brought it at his best on the national stage in front of millions of people, and that Jalen Hurts wants to get better. And I think Tua will force him to get better, will force him to eventually have to get confident and get into a mold of where you have to be more of a throwing quarterback. And it's not to say that you have to throw it every single time and you can't run anymore. But it's certainly to say he's going to want to get better as a pocket passer, as a throwing quarterback. We saw, that he was making strides in the offseason to get to this year. But we see that there's still more to be done. However, though, I think that you look at some of the games, you look at the Mississippi State game that we saw from this year, Alabama really did not play well. And a guy that kept them in that game and ultimately won that game for them, it was Jalen Hurts. It was Jalen Hurts, and he won it on his arm. So I think that we saw a really poor performance from him, but it would be, I think, a very, very poor decision and an ill-advised decision by Jalen Hurts if he were to leave Alabama and say, I'm done because this guy had a better game than me, so I assume I'm going to be forced out of my starting role where I went 25-2 in 2 seasons with Alabama. That would be absolutely ludicrous in my mind. He's going to stay at Alabama, and he's going to get better at Alabama, and it's going to be partially thanks to Tua and what he did last night.
I kind of have to disagree with you, and the only reason why I disagree with you is I'm not saying that. First off, it's like I told you last night. I'm not saying that, Jalen Hurts sucks, he's not going to start. The thing is, I believe you're partially right. Like the whole wishful thinking of, yeah, he's going to get better under Tua, he's going to develop. But the thing I look at is this is 2 things. One is in an interview today, Dan Patrick had on Lane Kiffin. And one of the things he said was a couple things. First, he said that he's like, I can say this now that I'm no longer at Alabama. The reason they weren't afraid that they lost Jake Fromm when Kirby Smart went to Georgia was because they were so excited about having Tua come in. He's like, at the time, couldn't tell you that. But he's like, now I'm no longer at Alabama. Yeah, we were so excited to have Tua. We didn't care that Jake Fromm decommitted and went to the Georgia Bulldogs. Number 2, and this to me was the big shocker, he goes, if Tua doesn't play last night, he was going to transfer. That's what Lane Kiffin's like, I know that for sure his plan was to transfer if he didn't play at all. If last night didn't happen, Tua's going somewhere else. And I kind of feel like the flip side's going to happen. It's not going to happen this year. It's not going to be like Jalen Hurts comes out, you know what, there's no way I'm winning. I'm going to just transfer right away. I feel like there's a part of Jalen Hurts that is what we saw last night. The teammate, hey, he did a great job. I'm just happy to win a national championship. However, the reason why I don't think Jalen Hurts right now, right away goes, I'm transferring, is because of where we are in the season. Like for most colleges, spring semester started yesterday. We're recording this on Tuesday. Most of them started on Monday of this week. So you're kind of behind the eight ball. He's like, most football programs are, he's like, Lane Kiffin even says, like, yeah, this week we started. Like, we started the semester shortly after. We're going to start our preparations for the next football season. This is where your early enrollees even come in to get a leg up on everything coming in for the new football season. So this is how I see it kind of mapping out. Jalen right now is an Alabama Crimson Tide. What's going to happen is we're going to go through spring football. We're going to go through the off season. There will be a quarterback battle. Of course, Nick Saban's not going to be a guy to say Tua won it because he won the national title. Of course, there's going to be a battle. But what I think is if Tua wins the battle, which I'll be honest, even after one half last night, like hearing Tua explain what he did on that final catch and then watching the replay, I'm like, that's pro-level shit right there. Like pro-level stuff to look, hey, I'm going to look you off of my receiver and then go to him.
Yeah.
And then be able to explain that in a post-game interview. Like, I even said to you, I'm like, you know what? Last week I said Fromm's going to be the number one pick. Scratch that. 2 or 3 years, we're going to be talking draft, and we're going to be asking the question either on here or the onside kick, who would you rather have, Tua or Jake Fromm? And, we're going to be having that conversation.
And folks, there might be another couple more scratch that's as we go along the way, and Ricky likes his flavor of the weeky quarterbacks.
But I like what I see from these two quarterbacks, especially like I'm going to say Tua more so than Jake Fromm. The thing I like most about Jake Fromm is that leadership quality, and I think that's going to carry him. He's the one that's going to, I think, develop more so and more so. This was just the first time we're seeing him. But back to Jalen Hurts. I think what happens is, let's say he loses the battle, because that's what I think is going to happen. I think Tua's the better quarterback. I think that the only reason why he didn't start this season was Jalen Hurts was coming in only one loss from the year before, and this year was winning games. Really, like you even mentioned last night, he helped them win that Mississippi State game that they almost lost. He only lost one game this year as well. Like last night was probably the worst that we've seen Jalen Hurts play all season. However, what I could see happening and what I think will happen is Tua wins the job. At that point, Jalen Hurts has the decision. I have officially lost the job. Do I sit there and become a backup and probably be Tua's backup for my final 2 years, barring an injury to Tua? Or do I go ahead and say, you know what? I myself am deciding to redshirt this junior year. See, this is the tricky part. Because he's already played, if he transferred, he'd have to sit out. So he's got really two choices. He can say, if he wants to transfer, he could say, I'm redshirting so I don't lose eligibility. Then transfer, but then you'd have to sit out another year, I think. Or you can go, I'm transferring, lose your junior year of eligibility as Tua's backup, then lose a year of like having to sit out a year, then play your senior year. The thing that I think is going to be the ultimate decision for Jalen Hurts and what I think will be is if he loses that quarterback battle, I don't see Jalen Hurts being a guy that NFL teams go, yeah, I want to draft him. I think that he'll be lost and he'll be like the Jake Cokers of the Alabama where it's like, wow, he's a great college quarterback, but he's not an NFL quarterback. Like, that's what I think will happen. So it'll become a decision for Jalen of, do I want to play football and actually start somewhere, or do I just want to be the backup here at Alabama and maybe play if Tua gets injured or if Tua has a bad game? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, we know Alabama's not big on getting their quarterbacks to the NFL, just their running backs.
Yeah, well, unless you're like A.J. McCarron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like when you look at the history, though, and I'm not saying this to write off, the fact that, and I'm not trying to disrespect Tua or Jalen. Alabama, it's it's running back you.
It is.
That's what they typically are known for. To go back to your point, though, here's what I think that is partially getting lost in this.
Okay.
Is that Jalen Hurts was pulled last night at halftime after he knows, he has to know himself. He didn't play well. And he has to he doesn't have to outwardly express that, but within like locker rooms and stuff like that, with him and his teammates and his coaches, he knows he didn't play well. He knows he could have played a whole heck of a lot better. And they're going to say, yeah, you could have. But guess what? They won a national championship. He's got a national championship to his name. That's huge. He didn't get pulled and then they lost the game. Now, if he would have gotten pulled and they still lost the game, now there's maybe a little bit more incentive and reason to say, you pulled me and we still lost. You didn't even give me that chance to bring us back. But that didn't happen. You won and you have a national championship.
See, that's the thing that maybe it's because me personally, if I was in Jalen's situation, and of course, like I said, it all comes down to this upcoming spring if he loses the job, which I'm going to be honest, right here and now, I'm foreseeing Tua being the starting quarterback next year. I think at this point, there is no way that he loses that job unless he basically space jams it and forgets how to play football. This kid is special, probably should have been starting this year, but you couldn't pull Jalen early in the year. You had to wait until he could.
But that's, again, you have to ask the question, and you have to say, should he have been starting this year? How can you say, should he have been starting this year when Jalen Hurts was winning them football games?
Here's my bigger point. That's not even the point I wanted to get at.
But now if you look back, though, could you have said and say, well, if Tua would have been in that game against Auburn, would they have won? Would he have been able to help propel them?
The
woulda, coulda is in hindsight. Hindsight, everything works out the way that it should have. But
I'm not even throwing out there if Tua would have played, they would have went undefeated. No, I'm not playing that. What I'm saying is, and that wasn't even the point I wanted to get at. The point I wanted to get at is, maybe this is my personal feeling, but I wouldn't want to be the player to, well, guess I'm going to be the backup. Doesn't matter if I win as long as I'm winning national championships. I'd be the player that's like, hey, you know what? I'm probably not going to get to the NFL. My career's probably over after I graduate from college. I want to go out there and actually start. And I want to go to the team that's going to give me an opportunity to do that if that opportunity is not here. But that's, again, me. If I was the football player, I wouldn't want to just sit behind a guy and be content because, I'm winning national championships. No, I would want to then be like, hey, you know what? I love being here, but I know the reality of it, and I want to go somewhere else where I am going to start and get to play football, because there are guys where it's like, maybe we know it best because we went to a smaller school where once you're done as a senior, you're done. You're not going to the NFL.
For the most part.
That's how low, there was only one player in my college career from the school that both you and I went to that even tried out with maybe two players out of my 4 or 5 years in college that even tried out with an NFL team from the NAIA. And that's something that I think we can't tell if that's going to happen right now, but that's going to be the thing that kind of decides this. What I want to move into, because we've already gone really long on this is the last thing I want to bring into this, is what you mentioned earlier. Conversation you and I had last night. You referenced to it when you made fun of the Mercer game. My biggest worry following this national championship is that teams will now look at Alabama and go, not the team in general. I think this year Alabama proved that you can say anything about their schedule, they deserve to be in the college football playoff. I know Ohio State fans can say, we deserve to be there. Did you see us beat the crap out of the Trojans from Southern Cal? Yeah, I did. But Alabama went on to beat the team that everyone had them favored. Everyone was picking Clemson to win that game. There were a few people picking Alabama, but the majority were picking Clemson to win that game. And then even in the national championship, yeah, they were favored by Vegas, but there was still a huge contingency that's like, I think that Georgia goes ahead and pulls this one out. I think they were more of an underdog pick-wise in the Clemson one, though. They go out and they beat, to me, the team that everyone had penned to be in the national championship, and then they go out and beat probably the best defense and the best mirror to themselves. It was basically like looking themselves in the mirror last night with what Kirby Smart brought to that team. But what I fear will happen is that college football teams look at it and go, you know what? Based on the committee, based on what I've seen, I'm not going to take that stab. I'm not going to go out there and play in Oklahoma. I'm not going to go out there and play in Ohio State. I'll schedule a Citadel. I'll schedule a College of Charleston. And a couple that I want to just throw out there really quick. This is next year's non-conference schedules, just some of the big teams that we've seen. Clemson, they're going to do a carbon copy, basically, of what they did this year. They're going to play 2 cupcake games in Furman and Georgia Southern, just like they did against Kent State and Citadel this year, and then play at Texas A&M. But, Texas A&M, new head coach this upcoming year, so Jimbo Fisher going to be just kind of getting his culture set up. We don't know what we're going to see from the Aggies. And then South Carolina, because they're always going to play the Gamecocks in that rivalry. Then I go on, you go to Oklahoma. They're going to play Florida Atlantic, which I got to give Florida Atlantic credit. I'm going to do that in a second. But they play Florida Atlantic. They're going to play a Chip Kelly team where Chip Kelly's just coming in, and guess what? He's losing Josh Rosen, and then Army. So their schedule already is not what they were. This year was UTEP Tulane. Good luck trying to lose to those teams. And then Ohio State, their only big game on the non-conference. Florida Atlantic, though, I got to give them credit. I know Frost is leaving UCF, but they're playing at Oklahoma in September. Then late September, they're playing at Southern Florida. Hey, national champions, we're coming to you. And then they're playing Air Force and Bethune-Cookman. So those are their 2 cupcakes. But they're the ones where it's like Lane Kiffin. I love Lane Kiffin going to Oklahoma next year saying, hey, you know what? Let's play a big dog. But moving on to the other big guys, Ohio State, they've got Oregon State, TCU at a neutral site in Texas, and then Tulane. You've got Penn State playing Appalachian State, Pittsburgh, and Kent State. Nothing to really talk about there. Wisconsin, the easiest of everything I'm looking at. Western Kentucky, New Mexico, and BYU. Kind of similar to what they did this year, except for Florida Atlantic because of what Lane Kiffin was supposed to what he did do this year. Then we have Georgia with Austin Peay, Mid-Tennessee, UMass, and Georgia Tech. And then the last one I'll say is Alabama. They got Louisville. This is a Nick Saban schedule through and through. We'll play Louisville to open the season in Orlando, Florida. So we're playing a neutral site close to Alabama, so I don't have to travel that far. Then we'll play Arkansas State, Louisiana Lafayette, and the Citadel. Come on. Are you kidding me? Like, this is what I'm fearing for teams. Because, like, Ohio State, I'm looking at them. In 2020 and beyond, they only have 1 or 2 games scheduled in non-conference. If I'm Ohio State in 2020 with how things are going, I'm just saying, hey, you know what? I'll keep Bowling Green in Oregon. Mercer, come on. I'll even go to you to play. Come on. Come for a payday.
So I've got a lot of comments on this. And the first one would be with Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin, you can say what he's done in the past, which hasn't been good with the programs that he's been at.
He's got a pair.
But I think he has learned what he's got to be able to do, to get recognition. And, I know they schedule these, they say they schedule these, well in advance and everything like that, years out and stuff. But to be able to be playing Oklahoma, to be playing UCF,
guess where he's going next in 2019 too to open the season?
Who?
Ohio State. He's going to the Horseshoe.
I think that these are things, and this is a model that other teams at that level, in terms of not Power 5, should really take into consideration to mirror. But on the flip side of that coin, teams like Alabama, teams like Ohio State, teams that are well known in the Power 5, that are beasts of the Power 5, they need to continue to show that, and they need to realize that just because you schedule one game like that, like let's say Louisville, and I'm not even saying Louisville's going to be a wonderful team next year, but so there you go. So you can't just do that anymore, and this has to go across all of the Power 5s, especially the ones at the top, to say, well, I scheduled so and so. And just because my conference is good, my conference schedule, my conference teams that I play are good because I'm in a good conference. That is going to suffice for everything. They need to get stronger on the out of conference schedule. That has to be across the board. I'm able to sit there and I'll bring up, I talked about UCF. If they want to be able to get to the playoff, and if they want to be within the top 10 conversation, not at the very end of the year when everyone's already won the national championship, to then the AP come out and say you're 6, but when you're
they got 4 first place votes.
When you're actually playing and you're actually in a playoff, to get there, you need to be able to schedule the tough teams, but at the same time, those teams have to be willing to play you. And that is the problem, is that if teams are not willing to play them, shame on those teams. Because if they think they're that good, then they should be able to beat anybody. And I can't, talk out of one side of my mouth and then say something on the other side. As a talking head on one of these things, wants to be kind of consistent and say, Alabama, and I didn't like it. And I've told you, and I told you in the season that I didn't like Alabama playing Mercer at all.
Can't even click on him.
Or at that point, that was my joke. You couldn't click on Mercer. That's how.
Oh wait, I can click on him now. Never mind.
That's how BS of a game that was.
The committee heard you, so they're like, "Hey ESPN, can you make him fucking clickable so Brandon keeps shutting up?"
But you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
I know that we've been on this topic for a while already, so we're going to have to move on, I know. But they overall, teams overall, Power 5, non-Power 5, they need to be able to try and schedule games that are against quality opponents outside of their conference. And those teams that they're trying to schedule with need to allow it. Because I really think that's how we're going to be able to recognize your UCFs and teams like them in the top 10 earlier in the season, and for us to say, okay, UCF played Ohio State and UCF won. UCF should be in that conversation now. And I know I am a person who, if you're able to schedule and be able to get in with some teams that are Power 5, that are quality Power 5, because there's non-quality Power 5 too. You can't just say you played a Power 5 and
you can play Illinois, but it's a non-quality Power 5.
Exactly. So if you're able to play quality Power 5s and you're able to beat them, then you should be in the conversation. And I think that Power 5s cannot be worried then, and they cannot use, I don't want to lose to them, so I'll just move on to someone I know I'll beat. They've got to stop doing that as well.
The thing that I think needs to change the most, and this will kind of be the ending point that I kind of make, is the thing that needs to change immediately is the fact that, you look at an ACC schedule like Clemson, you look at an SEC schedule like Georgia, Auburn, Alabama, and the thing that those two have in common is 4 non-conference games. However, you look at a team like Oklahoma, you look at a team like Southern Cal, you look at a team like Ohio State, they only get 3 non-conference games because they have to play an extra conference game.
Yeah.
And the thing that that's the big thing to me is we need to, with conference scheduling, I would love a world where it's like everyone plays the same amount of conference games. There's no question here. Or if it's like, I can't even remember who said it. I think it might have been Rick Neuheisel. On the Dan Patrick show when he was talking about his playoff system. I'm not saying go with his playoff system, but what he was saying was you have each of the Power 5s, do whatever you want to settle your 2 best teams at the end of the year. Do whatever scheduling you want, have whatever championship game you want, but at the end of the where we have it now. So at the end of conference championship week, you have to settle your two best teams, and those two teams go into the playoff or go into the championship game. But it's such a lopside when Ohio State might have to play an extra opponent, and that extra opponent coming from the other side of the Big Ten could be in Iowa, who knocked them off this year. Whereas Alabama doesn't have that extra game. We can schedule Mercer for that one late in the season. And I get why Nick Saban does that. Cupcake game before the Iron Bowl. But I'll give you a cupcake before a really tough game.
But I'll tell you what, though, is that going back to what I said then, it didn't help them because
it didn't.
You don't have to get up for that cupcake game.
Yeah.
You quote unquote, you're going to win that one. But then does that do you any favors as you then go into the Iron Bowl? Because now all of a sudden you're coming off this, lull of, that was so easy, whatever. But then it's hard to go into that because you're not taking any momentum. It's like whatever.
You didn't take the game seriously at all.
Exactly, and I'm not saying that you have to schedule Ohio State right before you play, right before you play in the Iron Bowl and play Auburn, but you've got to get going. You've got to get a team in there that makes you at least get up a little bit.
Like, I know the one thing I loved the Big Ten for was they made a rule, I think it was 2 years ago or a year ago, where they said, you know what, enough with this FCS crap. If you play an FCS school, we're going to penalize you. Or they're like, you know what, you can't play FCS schools anymore. So that's why we don't see that in the Big Ten. I think the big thing, though, is making sure it's like, okay, if you're playing 3, everyone's playing 3 non-conference games. Everyone plays the same number of conference games in the season. However, A, I don't think that happens. B, that's harder than it is. But we've gone on this enough. National championship recap, and then these two kind of extra conversations at the end. I'm going to turn it on to you guys, though. What do you guys think? What did you think of the game? What do you think of the Tua Jalen conversation we had? And then the scheduling little aftermath of that's my biggest worry of what this could happen to the future of college football. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section.